Well, first off, I'll apologize for this being a week late, but I'm making it up to everyone because we're doing two today, actually, so that'll be good. And the first one is one that I've actually been wanting to do for a long time. It's a movie that you know very well, and a movie that I know pretty well. A movie that I had extreme hopes for during the Oscar season, and a movie that you had hopes for during the Oscar season. And they're 1 year apart. It's 2004 and 2005. So, we're going to go musical theme this time around on our Oscar-themed verses. And we're going to find out what happens when Walk the Line battles Ray. AJ, take it away.
I was a little hesitant about doing this because... Should I go ahead and say that?
Go ahead. Well, say what you want to say on this, actually. Because you could say a lot of things right now.
Well, as far as, which one I'm going to choose, I'm just going to throw it out there right now. I'm not Ray's biggest fan.
No, you're not.
But I will elaborate. Or else I wouldn't be doing this. But as far as just them being musical biopics, another reason I was hesitant was you pick two musical biopics to compare. Mm-hmm. Most musical biopics are the same fucking thing. Like, just pull any of them out, and it's more or less the same thing.
We could have always done Walk Hard next to Walk the Line.
But, Jesus. Fuck that.
See, it could be worse.
But these movies are particularly close. Not only were they only 1 year apart, with one went to the Oscar in 2004 and one went in 2005, but they actually have they're
very parallel.
They both begin with flashbacks of the younger version of the main character seeing their brother die. Mm-hmm. Which basically is a motivator for them. They both were accused of being unoriginal. Like, there's both scenes have a movie where they audition for somebody and that person says, "We hear this kind of shit all the time. You need something new." And obviously both of them went, because it's a musical biopic, you're always going to have this that eventually leads to drugs and alcohol.
Of course.
And fucked up marriages. So, only difference is this actually, on screen, one of these only ended up in one marriage, and the other ended up in a couple.
Yeah.
Which is really funny because the movie that has more than one marriage in it, or more than one, yeah, basically, more than one marriage in it, is the much more romantic of the two movies.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with Ray, I think. Well, since we're doing the Oscar-themed ones, I'll go ahead and tell you. Ray got 6 nominations. There was Best Picture, Best Director for Taylor Hackford, Editing, and Costume Design, and Jamie Foxx won Best Actor, and it won Sound Mixing. I wonder where I should start here. I will start with Jamie Foxx. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of the fact that Jamie Foxx won an Oscar for this. Because, here's the thing. Not only did he have, amazing competition, he had, his main competitor was DiCaprio for The Aviator, mm-hmm. who should have walked away with it, long in advance, but...
We learned the Academy does not like DiCaprio.
Yeah. And they didn't even nominate Paul Giamatti for Sideways or Tom Cruise for Collateral, both of which I probably would have put in Jamie Foxx's place on the nomination list. That's not to say there isn't quality in his performance, but I would like to say that Jamie Foxx did Ray Charles on In Living Color.
Ray Charles himself gave the thumbs up for the performance, though.
Ray Charles had a lot to do with the whole movie.
Yeah.
He was involved with the production
exactly.
until he died.
So you got to think that he obviously had something there.
here's the thing.
Yes, he did do it in a living color. That is true.
And I don't know if it's because of In Living Color or if it's just the performance itself, but okay. It does take a lot to become Ray Charles.
Yeah.
And it helps if you're fucking hanging out with the guy while making the movie.
Which is what he did.
But like you have to have a certain presence. Like everybody loved to say he was like in total command of a room, and even though I think it was Roger Ebert that said something really great. He said Ray Charles saw his blindness as an attribute instead of a handicap.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he was never oblivious to anything. Like, he was always, like...
fully aware of everything.
Like, if he so much as sensed somebody else in the room, it's like, who is that? Who's over there? And, like, when the guy tried to rip him off with the money, he, like, knew. You have to have a kind of presence to play that part, and, but then again, it's also extremely easy to just do an impression of Ray Charles. That might be easier said than done, but, just to... especially if you have experience doing the, the head thing behind a piano and the speech and all that, from doing a comedy show, that might help. And he did the whole... This is the thing that bothers me the most. Now, I understand the argument. I do.
And I'll throw it out at you, probably.
I do understand the argument, but... And I'm going to tell you the argument, but I got to tell you the problem. Because when I learned this really, really bothered me. Most people don't think this is important. Okay, you talk about an actor being devoted to a role and everything they do to be that role. It was very much in the public eye, no pun intended, that Jamie Foxx spent his entirety of the time on the race set with his eyes glued shut. Mm-hmm. So he was literally blind. But he did not sing the songs. He did all this stuff to be devoted to playing Ray Charles, but he was lip-syncing. Now, of course, the argument is Ray Charles was working on the movie, they had his recordings, and nobody can sing like Ray Charles, so why not just have the real thing? I'll tell you why you don't just have the real thing. It's because you have this actor who is clearly devoted to being this person, doing everything to possibly embody that person. Why take a shortcut for the most prominent thing this person does in the movie? Do you realize how much of this movie is Ray Charles singing?
Yeah.
A fucking lot of it.
I know.
And the movie's really goddamn long.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Like, this is one of those moments where, if I'm, like, Walk the Line, I don't understand, but when these movies went to the Golden Globes, they were under musical. Mm-hmm. That was their genre. Ray, I totally buy as a musical.
Yeah.
Because so much of it is the music. Okay. So, like I said, I understand the main argument about why not have Ray Charles when you have Ray Charles. Mm. But,
And he can sing like that.
Okay. You could also say Ray Charles was still alive when they made the movie. If you're going to say, well, since we have Ray Charles to sing, why don't we just have Ray Charles sing? Well, then why didn't you just have Ray Charles play his fucking self?
He couldn't have played his young self. No.
Technology, look, the Jeff Bridges and Tron.
Don't bring up Jeff Bridges and Tron. At least you didn't bring up Arnold. Yeah. Bridges is the better go-to.
I said that mainly in joking, but
I know you did.
So let's talk about some other things. I don't want this to turn into a Ray bashing video because there are some things about Ray that I like. I'm just saying. I'd like to point out something very odd that I noticed immediately in the opening credits. I had heard that a lot of Walk the Line is fictional. Mm-hmm. Like, they got the main stuff down.
Yeah.
But a lot of the actual movie is fabricated.
Of course.
For story purposes.
Yeah.
It's to my understanding that Ray is very accurate.
Yes.
Especially when you had Ray Charles himself working on the movie. Literally right up until he died.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, he died like right before it came out, like a few months before or something.
Yeah.
Um, when you watch the opening credits of Ray, there is a story by credit. There is also, I mean, yeah, you get there's a credit in Walk the Line that says based on the books by Johnny Cash,
Yeah.
but there is a story by credit that Taylor Hackford and James L. White, who is the screenwriter, gets. How does that work?
I'm not exactly sure.
Did James L. White and Taylor Hackford say, you know what? I think we should make a movie about Ray Charles's life. Hence, story by credits.
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe they wrote like an outline of the script or something.
Potential. I think that's probably more true.
Okay. But that was just weird. I thought that was a weird credit to see in a biopic.
Seeing a script in a documentary is weird too.
Not if it has narration, because then it means they wrote the narration. You don't think Matt Damon was just speaking from the heart and inside job, did you?
I certainly hope not.
Okay. So, and I will give the movie credit. Another thing that it does is a thing that biopics love to do is make their character look amazing, like make their character look saint-like.
Yeah.
To the movie's credit, Ray does anything but make Ray Charles look saint-like.
Yeah.
We get complete into the adultery and the drug addiction and the alcohol and whatever the fuck else he was doing. So there's always that. I'm doing my best to compliment it.
I know you are.
However, there are some... Okay, let's talk about the flashbacks. I didn't mind it in Walk... Flashbacks really bother me. I kind of went into this in the Saving Mr. Banks review. I think flashbacks are just... Hang on a second.
But they have to be there, though, honestly. Like them or not, they have to be there.
I just think flashbacks are a really weird storytelling device because I know this isn't necessarily cinematic, but I mean, if you want to do things in the story that'll maybe that aren't as distracting and seem like they're taking away from stuff, if there's something really, really important that you're telling in a flashback, especially if your movie is 2 hours and 33 minutes like Ray is, chances are whatever is in that backstory can either be shown at the very beginning or can be brought up in dialogue in one sentence. This whole having flashbacks throughout the movie thing always bothered me. I really don't like when movies do that because it's weird and they never... It's like I was saying with Saving Mr. Banks. They tried to kind of tie in what was happening at that point in the movie with what was happening in the flashback. But most of the times it just felt really fucking random and out of place. Like, obviously it's a big deal that he went blind as a kid and right after he saw his brother drown.
Mm.
The very beginning of the movie could have been him watching his brother drown and then him going blind and then gone into Ray Charles the adult. But we don't see him... He doesn't go blind as a child till like 40 minutes into the movie. And the flashback is just totally placed in there at just a random place. Whereas Walk the Line did what you should do. It had about 15 minutes of Johnny Cash as a kid, then just went into the rest of the movie. Not doing a flashback thing. It had its own movie to do, and that's what it did. Because I mentioned this in the fucking Winnie Mandela review. I never understood... Okay, I get doing a biopic of the person, but I never saw the point in doing a biopic that goes all the way back.
Yeah.
You want to do the stuff that people give a shit about.
Yeah, of course.
Like I said, you see him as a kid. You see Ray Charles as a kid. Do him watching his brother drown. Do him going blind. That's all you need of flashbacks. Okay, and there's the one at the end. Whatever. If you have to have a flashback at the very end to motivate somebody to do something, maybe that's okay. But, and I know it makes... Okay. There's so many things where I can give it credit and then I can't give it credit. I suppose if you're going to have a flashback at the end, it feels less out of place if you've been doing flashbacks the whole time. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
But I'm just not a fan of the flashbacks through the whole movie thing. End of point. There is another issue I have with this. It's a problem a lot of biopics have. I know it makes them fun and everything, but when you do a biopic, you really should be telling a story. Ray really doesn't tell that much of a story. It basically says, this is that musician you know, and this is how he made his songs, got married, committed adultery, and did drugs and alcohol. That's pretty much the extent of it. It just goes from moment to moment. Mm-hmm. And there are those moments where, you know, they're in every biopic, they're like, oh, so that's how that came to be. I go back to J. Edgar. I'm using so many different examples in these movies that aren't Ray or Walk the Line. Remember that kind of... I like J. Edgar as a movie. Yeah. But you remember that really dumb moment where he's, like, shopping for a tuxedo or something? Or a suit?
Yeah.
And they say, we need you to sign this, but he's... Something about his signature is off or something, so he signs it J. Edgar. No, he wanted to sign it as his first name, and they said he couldn't do that. So that's where he came up with the idea to call himself J. Edgar.
J. Edgar.
Yeah. Ray is basically... that's basically most of what Ray is moments of people going, oh, so that's how that happened, or that's how that song came to be. I think it was, oh shit, what's the song they sing in Tommy Boy? I don't know the fucking... I can hear it in my head, but I don't know the name of the song. Anyway, that
What'd
song...
I say?
Yes.
Yeah.
That song has an origin in Ray. So much so that it makes you believe he came up with the whole song on the spot. And you have, it's a really good scene. It's probably my favorite scene of the movie. I do like the scene where we find out how the Mess Around came into...
Yeah, Mess Around's an awesome song.
Where we find out the character played by Curtis Armstrong wrote it, and he sings it to him because he can't read the music. And then he comes up with the beat there, and then the song becomes a hit. That is a good scene, but then there's... And then there's the, what were the girls called? The Raylettes or something.
Yeah.
And when he... I know this was crucial to his life, but still, it was just another one of those where I was like, oh, God, I can just hear people. When he's going into that club, trying to get into Warwick Davis's club, and you see Lawrence Tate in the alley trying to play music and trying to get in, and they're like, he's just this little street punk, and they're like, yo, you can't get in here, you get out of here, and he's like, hey man, you know, I can be your friend, I can help you out, man, I can get you in there, and like, oh, who's this little street rat person? And he's like, my name is Ray Robinson. He's like, I'm Quincy Jones. All right.
Work for me.
Okay. And I just... That kind of shit is just so played out, though. It's like, oh, who's this person? Oh my God, it's that person. I would have never guessed. All right.
Oh, like in Forrest Gump where they run into Elvis?
Forrest Gump did that stuff for comedy.
Yes.
That was the whole point of Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay.
Well, speaking of Curtis Armstrong, I will bring up that there is something interesting that they do. Somebody pointed this out, and I can't remember now, but somebody brought up a good point. Another thing this movie does is there is the music producers and executives are played by Curtis Armstrong and Richard Schiff, and they are like. What the interesting thing that Ray did is normally when you see most movies, music producers are usually these really like scummy people that like fuck people over and do what the fuck they want and don't care about anybody else but getting rich.
Yeah.
These are actually music producers that are pretty nice guys.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting shift and change. Not. You know, the guy's name is Schiff.
Yeah, I knew you were
I didn't mean to do that.
I know.
And we have the character, this is actually something Ray did right that I didn't like in Walk the Line. But Walk the Line is kind of a plot device, so I guess it's okay. Kerry Washington is his wife. Mm-hmm. And of course, you know, she's going to be a little naggy because the love of her life is hiding very dangerous drugs from her that he's taking. You know, which would be the normal reaction.
Oh, of course.
But instead of making her that character that's kind of like, she only exists to be the, oh my god, what have you done character, she's actually like the loving wife in a positive way. Like, and she's not the overly loving way. She's not like, you know, in the kitchen all the time making sandwiches. Like, okay, let's talk about the scene where Ray Charles had a lover that was pregnant with his child. And she ended up dying. And there's the scene where we find out that she knew the whole time that she was his lover. And she's actually very caring about the whole thing. Like, she says, how's the baby doing and stuff like that. And and it just kind of revealed that she knew, but she wasn't like, she didn't do the packing your shit, I'm doing that thing. She basically stood her ground by not standing her ground.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I feel like this is maybe one of those movies where maybe somewhere down the road, I've only seen Ray. Ray came out in 2004. Ray is now in October. I think October is when it was released. In October, Ray will be 10 years old. I've only seen it twice. One of those times was recently. The other time was when it first came out on DVD.
Wow.
Maybe Ray is one of those movies where in time, if I see it enough times, maybe I can kind of see what the big deal is. Because for some reason, Ray is one of those movies that just reeks of generic biopic to me. It's just got every fucking cliche you can possibly have in there. But it's got so much prestige behind it for some reason. People really fucking love it.
Yeah.
So maybe if I watch it a few years later down the road or something, and I kind of do that gradually, maybe by the time I'm 40 or something, I'll think Ray's a masterpiece.
It's possible.
Because there are those movies that kind of grow on you.
Yeah.
Like, there'll be those movies that you really hate, and then you watch them again like 5 years later, and for whatever reason, and you're like, wow, that wasn't as bad as I remember at all. And then you actually become a fan of the movie in the long run. Maybe I'll do that with Ray sometime. It doesn't help that it's so goddamn long.
Yeah.
I mean, not as long as the other movie where Django. I was just going to outright call him Django. Where Jamie Foxx and Kerry Washington play husband and wife. I'm just going to call Jamie Foxx Django from now on, I guess. So yeah, Django did a great job as Ray Charles. 9 years before the fact. Or no, 8 years before the fact.
That's hilarious.
So that's my opinion of Ray in a nutshell. Maybe it could grow on me. I obviously own it on DVD, so if I get if I like, you know, say, you know what, maybe I should watch Ray again and see what happens, it's always there.
True.
I have it on DVD for the prestige factor. Plus, I think it was like $7. And it has the really nice gold out. It actually came in a really shiny gold case, but I didn't know if the shine would like fuck with shit, so I just took it out of it. So yeah, let's talk about Walk the Line now. The movie that may or may not win this little competition.
Gee, I wonder who's gonna win.
Well, okay, just hear me out on some things here. Because it's not so much that Ray does so much wrong. Walk the Line does a lot of things right, too. So,
This is also really nicely hinged, even though we didn't do this on purpose, to the fact that Her came out wider release this week, too.
We saw Her today.
Exactly.
Her the movie, not the Her that may or may not.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway, continue.
As I was talking about, the very first thing that this movie does right is it does all the flashback shit at the beginning.
Yeah.
It does this doesn't bother me because it's such a common thing. It's so many movies do it. It's just a common thing. It's not I wouldn't even call it a cliche. It's just something that just is a common thing in movies now, where we start at a certain place in the movie and then we see the whole movie almost, and then we circle back around to that scene from the beginning.
That's a very commonplace.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call that a cliche anymore.
No,
it's just,
normal.
Yeah. So we see, and would you believe it? The scene we're looking at actually plays into the flashback, because the very first scene of the movie is Johnny Cash sitting. He's in Folsom Prison, which for some reason has a table saw in it.
Yeah.
Well, he says when he goes on stage towards the end, he said, when the scene circles back around, he says, "I was hanging out back there in your shop. I didn't know prisons had
Shop class.
Yeah, where they could use fucking saws." But, of course, this was a different time, so maybe they were more trustworthy. I don't know what prisons nowadays have.
Nope.
I wouldn't imagine table saws for everybody's like. That's just a guess. But anyway, and of course the saw reminds him of what happened to his brother.
Mm.
It just so happens that it makes him think of the rest of his life before he circles back around. But that's okay. Because, that's the story.
Yep.
That would have been a short-ass movie for us to... He's in the prison, he sees the table saw, he has the memory of his brother, then we cut back to him in the prison, and we've missed all the shit that happened leading to him being in the prison.
I know you hate it, but it's something that comes to mind immediately. It reminds me of Booty Tang.
Why?
You know how he is, he's sitting there with Marv Albert, and he's showing him, we're going to show you a clip of my new movie.
Why are we talking about Booty Tang right now?
No, because that's the same thing. He basically showed him the entire movie, the flashback of the entire movie is the movie clip. So yeah,
well,
that's what I'm talking about.
Ray Charles himself was in a movie called Booty Call, so I guess it's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
With Jamie Foxx. With Jamie Foxx.
Yeah, that's why I said Ray Charles himself.
Yeah.
You thought I meant that.
I thought you meant somehow Jamie Foxx was in.
Maybe you need to go take a rest or something.
I'm tired.
Okay. So anyway, walk the line back from Booty Tang and Booty Call. Oh, I got it. Okay. The nominations. Everybody thought it would get in picture, and it didn't.
Yeah, it's kind of a shocking
The
surprise.
2005 picture nominees are weird. I don't know how a lot of those got in, actually. No. Crash and Brokeback were the only ones that were, for sure. We had Joaquin Phoenix got nominated for Best Actor. It got in for editing, sound mixing, and costumes, and Reese Witherspoon won Best Actress.
Which is very familiar, because that's a lot of what Ray got nominated for, too.
So, that's how it was easy to remember.
Exactly.
So, we will do... maybe I should talk about Phoenix's performance before I talk about anything else, I did Ray. Okay, remember everything I said Jamie Foxx did wrong? It felt like a Ray Charles impression, and he was lip-syncing.
Mm-hmm.
Joaquin Phoenix made a character and didn't just imitate Johnny Cash, and he sang. So basically, you know that famous picture of Johnny Cash giving the finger?
Yeah.
That's directed at Jamie Foxx.
Oh, that's not even right.
Okay.
To his credit, Jamie Foxx can sing like Ray Charles and proved it before.
The only reason Joaquin Phoenix did not win was because Philip Seymour Hoffman was a really big competitor.
Yeah.
Nowadays, people will tell you Heath Ledger was the runner-up, but
No.
I think that was just his increased popularity. Heath Ledger didn't have a chance back in 2005.
Nope.
The 2005 race was either going to be Philip Seymour Hoffman or Joaquin Phoenix. So what he does is... The thing is he's more... Like I said, most of Ray is just Ray Charles singing. Let me rephrase. Most of Ray is Jamie Foxx lip-syncing. While Phoenix gets to sing a lot in Walk the Line, he doesn't sing, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's him actually having to play the character without doing the Johnny Cash thing. He has to actually be the person for most of the movie.
Yeah.
Which I think was another thing that was more in his favor than Jamie Foxx's. So, I mean, yeah, okay. Jamie Foxx did have to act like Ray Charles a lot, but a lot of it was him behind the piano doing the thing, to be totally honest. And there was only so much of Joaquin Phoenix behind the guitar, doing the up here thing. So, so I think that's really where, as far as leading performances, Joaquin Phoenix really, really shined in the part, because he had a lot to the screenwriters too had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
Made Johnny Cash an actual character instead of, hey, this is the guy that did all of this stuff. It also, we want to talk about the cliche of the drugs and the alcohol. And, you also want to add a cliche into the musical biopic, going to jail.
Yeah.
And or prison. Cash did all three of those. When he got, busted with the drugs. So
Yep.
So anyway, you distracted me.
I'm sorry.
But the thing is in Ray, the drugs and the alcohol were just kind of, hey, these were things he did, and he had a downfall because of it, kind of. The drugs and the alcohol and the jail and Walk the Line are an actual plot point.
Yeah.
Because, okay, let me go ahead and put that. I was going to wait to say this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it now because this is what I'm getting to.
Okay.
This is what I love about Walk the Line and not so much about movies like Ray. Like I said, Ray is the ultimate 100% cliche musical biopic. You have the musical star who was into drugs and alcohol, had a downfall, came back, the end. Walk the Line is a love story over everything else. Yeah. It's not a Johnny Cash biopic. It is the love story between him and June Carter, is the movie. As soon as because when he and June Carter get together and she accepts the marriage proposal, the movie fucking ends.
Yeah.
We don't see them get married. We don't see them have children. We don't see them go. It just says, by the way, they lived 35 more years very happily until she bit it, and then he bit it right afterwards. As soon as they get together, the movie decides to stop.
Yep.
Because that's all the story we need.
That's the story they want to tell.
Yes. Which is what I really think more biopics should do. Just like the Aviator.
Yeah, I love The Aviator. The
Aviator is 3 hours long.
Yes.
But the great thing that The Aviator did was it's only a very small portion of Howard Hughes' life.
What's with DiCaprio in 3 hour long movies?
With Scorsese.
Yeah, okay.
It's not DiCaprio, it's Scorsese. Well, plus Titanic. Titanic broke 3 hours. That's in a whole level of its own.
Yeah.
You're throwing in Django too, I guess.
Yep.
Okay, fine. It's a DiCaprio film. Should we talk about Reese now?
Yeah, definitely.
Because she's the one that walked away with, a shiny gold person.
Yes.
Once again, it was, neck and neck. It was her and Felicity Huffman for Transamerica.
Mm-hmm.
I was really rooting for Reese.
Yeah.
I mean, I really do I liked Transamerica, and Felicity Huffman is great in it. But, what Reese did with this character is she did another one of those things. It's so rare that movies actually do this. And when you have those performances that can actually do this, it's an incredible thing to witness. Another one that immediately comes to mind is Kate Hudson in Almost Famous.
Oh, yeah.
You know where I'm going with this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What Reese does with June Carter is normally when you watch love stories, a guy falls in love with a girl. And that's the end of it. Over half the time, you say, why the fuck would he fall in love with her? And, and you just kind of watch it happen.
Yeah.
The way Reese plays June Carter, you actually almost feel like you're falling in love with June while he is. Which makes it much easier to be invested in. Unlike most love stories. Not just musical love stories or biopic love stories, just love stories in general. That's what makes this movie work so well. And she has this, it's this really, there's such a complexity to her too, because she has this, she's a very serious person, and her idea is to want to sing, basically. But basically she's stuck in doing this ridiculous comedy act.
Yep.
And you actually get to, there's actually multiple scenes where we get to see her go from serious to the comedy bits, and sometimes at the same time, like if she's in the middle of a comedy bit and trying to scold him. And then there's scenes towards the end where he does get involved with the drugs and all that. It's just she has to go to full-on drama, and the way she's just able to transfer back and forth, I think, is what really...
It's an amazing performance.
Yeah. And, the whole being able to exude the actual person without just doing a cheap imitation. like Jamie Foxx. Sorry. All the fucking love I gave Django, calling Django one of the best movies. Django's probably one of my favorite movies of all time now, and I've seen almost 7,000 movies. I think I've given Jamie Foxx enough love lately. He can take this beating.
And he was in another movie you absolutely loved this same year, in Collateral.
Yeah.
So.
And plus he won a goddamn Oscar for it. He can take the heat. Another character I'd like to go into, I guess. I don't know what's going on with this character. This was the one thing I said Ray did right that this movie didn't, but I didn't know the real people, so I don't know. I'm talking about Jennifer Goodwin, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously they made, like I said, they could have been two totally different people, I guess, but the nagging wife thing I was talking about, where it was great that Kerry Washington's character didn't do that. I do kind of, I mean, I know, John A. Cash was like on drugs and, drinking and, basically not going anywhere with his life.
Yeah.
And she basically, there are times where she seemed to be doing her best to support him, I guess. Like, she was happy when when Dallas Roberts signed him up for the label, or whatever. No, he made a record with him. Or I don't remember, it's been a while. Regardless, when Dallas Roberts really helped him out,
yeah, there we go.
She was really happy for him because he made a record. But that's like the only time in the movie we see her happy for him. The rest of the time, she's like going insane over everything, and she's being unsupportive and basically a bitch. So, but then again, it's kind of, you don't know whose side to take, because he's like absolutely 100% certain he wants to commit adultery on her with June. But, when you see Jennifer Goodwin as this character and you see Reese Witherspoon as June, I can totally understand one wanting to commit adultery, sure.
Well, I'll just stop there. But, no, Jennifer Goodwin wasn't really known when this movie came out. This was like her first
What show is she on now?
She's on Once Upon a Time.
Yeah. I knew she was on a show. I didn't know which one.
Yes.
I actually didn't know who she was until Win a Day with Tad Evans.
And I was very close. I was like between me and you, like right now, to her at New Fantasyland.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I have a picture of that actually.
Another person I'd like to talk about before I go into the other aspects of the movie itself is Robert Patrick.
Yes.
Nobody plays the stern douchebag quite like Robert Patrick.
Nope.
And I'm not saying Robert Patrick seems like a stern douchebag. I hear he's actually a really nice guy. But when Robert Patrick plays the stern douchebag, it's so fucking glorious. Yes. You almost want to bask in it. But the great thing here is he played the stern douchebag so gloriously, you really fucking hate him.
Yeah.
I really hate Robert Patrick in this movie. I want to punch him in the fucking dick.
Very true.
Punch
him in the balls.
So, we have this scene, of course, where the older brother dies.
Mm-hmm.
And we get an immediate look at what the kind of guy that Robert Patrick is, because naturally his first instinct is to say, the wrong kid died.
Yeah.
This guy is Father of the Year.
Yes, he is.
He was also an alcoholic, so maybe and there's kind of hints that the alcoholism might be in the genes and all that.
I'm sure it is, actually.
And then we have this, it's funny they were in the same year, the Thanksgiving dinner right out of Brokeback.
Yeah. Where
you have the father and son. Well, in Brokeback it was the father-in-law and the son-in-law, but in this it's the father and son. Where Johnny Cash is now this big deal. He's made a lot of money. He's bought this new house that he's really proud of that's on the fucking lake. Mm-hmm. And everything seems to be going fine. He's trying to get cleaned up. Everything's going right, it seems. So they sit down. The first thing he does when he gets there is complain that the tractor's in the mud. And he's like, that's a mighty fine piece of equipment to be just laying around in the mud. So it's like, okay, fine. He doesn't approve already. And just to be the biggest douchebag he possibly can, we're sitting there in the at the dinner table, and everybody's trying to make friendly conversation. And he says, "So, Dad, what do you think?" And he's like, "About what? I'm doing my best Robert Patrick here." "What do I think about what?" "The house. I mean, it's nice, isn't it?" "Jack Benny's is bigger."
So random, that's what he pulled out. Jack Benny?
Uh,
Given the years, I guess that would make sense.
Now, in any normal movie, this would be really melodramatic. But the interesting thing, this is actually really good. Once again, I'm very proud of Walk the Line for this. Walk the Line manages to avoid so many cliches while being right in that territory. This is, sorry, Brokeback, you fell into the cliches trap. Walk the Line actually swerved around it. You have the confrontational dinner scene. Naturally, there's going to be screaming and yelling and throwing food, and somebody's going to storm out. Everybody's going to storm out. People are going to cry. People are going to be sad. The way this scene plays out is simply Joaquin giving Robert Patrick a very calm speech about basically how he wishes the older brother was here instead of him. No yelling, no. The most loud we get is when he slams the door on his way out.
Yep.
He's very calm about it. But then, of course, we get the disaster of a scene where he tries to pull the tractor out and ends up in the water, and everybody's leaving. It's humiliating for everyone involved. But we didn't have screaming, yelling, or throwing food.
That's a step in the right direction.
Oh, man. So I think Mangold worked on the script. Yeah, it was Mangold and Gil Dennis, who I think is a name we've seen on another movie we did recently. It's worth noting, by the way, that James Mangold is the most diverse director I've ever fucking seen.
Yes.
I'll get into him in a minute after I've gone through the movie. There's some things here. I want to talk about the scene with Dallas Roberts, because that's a really, really good scene. So he walks up to the place, and he tells Dallas Roberts that he wants to make a record. And he's like, "Well, I can't do that. You got to be on the label." And he's like, "Well, what about those guys on the wall?" And he's like, "Well, they're on the label."
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
So he brings the band in, and like I said about Ray, they do the audition, and it's the same old shit. It's gospel that everybody has heard over and over again.
Yep.
So Dallas Roberts gets this really great speech about, let's say you're on the side of the road and you're dying. This is the last song you're ever gonna sing. This song has to tell everybody everything about you.
Nice.
And you just have to feel it. So he starts to sing Folsom Prison Blues by himself, and the band is lost because he wrote it while he was in the Air Force. And then they start to join in, and then that's how he makes a record. And we see what's great about this scene is we see Johnny Cash, the loser, who is, his band is in the garage, and they're Jennifer Goodman calls them mechanics that can barely play anyway. And that's why she doesn't support his band. When he goes and he does this, and we focus on him while he's singing Folsom Prison Blues, you can see him turn from the guy that was hanging out in the garage with his band to the Johnny Cash that became the Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
It's made in this scene. We actually see him morph into him as he sings this song. You were talking about when Forrest Gump meets Elvis. Mm-hmm. So did Johnny Cash, apparently.
Yes, he did.
He palled around with him and Jerry Lee Lewis for quite some time, apparently. That might be some of the fictionalized stuff. I don't know.
I doubt it, though, to be honest.
It was them, and it was June and a few others, and they were all touring together. Mm-hmm. And that's when he started to fall in love with her. Yep. June actually comes into the movie kind of late for winning and leading actress, anyway.
Yeah.
I was talking about stuff the stuff that Ray does, where it's oh, I recognize this, or oh, that's how that came to be. Oh. When that shit happens in Walk the Line, it's actually part of the plot. When we see, when June writes Ring of Fire, we see her writing it, normally in a movie say, Ray, that's a little more cliche. Ray has so much hate now. I feel bad for it now. I feel bad for it in its Best Picture nomination and its fucking Best Actor win. I feel so sorry for it. When she's writing Ring of Fire in a normal movie, you'd say, oh, so that's how that song came to be. That's amazing. The reason she's writing Ring of Fire is to let out her emotions about Johnny Cash and his drug battle and how she's dealing with it, basically. Basically, her way of coping with him was to write Ring of Fire. So that's the way you want to do it. If you want to do stuff like, oh, that's how that came to be. Like the weird scene in Notorious when he's fucking Lil' Kim and she calls him Big Papa, and apparently that's where that song came from.
I like Notorious.
Yeah, but that was just a weird...
It was very odd that was what they used.
Okay. So... Yeah. Long story short, I much prefer Walk the Line as far as a biopic. And I think Walk the Line is actually a pretty high standard for biopics in general, not just about musicians. Because it manages to be a movie that's a whole other story than just, hey, this is what Johnny Cash's life was. So, yeah, and it's got a lot more memorable, like when I said Ray is just kind of a moment-to-moment thing, Walk the Line has more memorable scenes too. One of which being the one where he overdoses while he's on stage, but he's like, it's actually kind of a freaky scene because it's like one of the, like, absolutely nothing is going to get in the way of him performing this song because he's like, he knows he's ODing and he knows he's about to hit the floor, but he's playing this fucking song as hard as he possibly can. When he drops his PG-13 F-bomb on the drummer when he won't speed up.
Cocaine?
Hmm?
Wasn't it cocaine?
I don't know what those pills were. They were pills.
Yeah.
I don't know what the pills were, actually. We see the bottles all the time, but I never really got a... I don't remember. They probably say it somewhere, but I don't remember them saying specifically. I'll go back and watch it. They probably say it a lot, and I just forgot.
You want to talk about James Mangold, is what you were saying?
Yeah, real quickly. Well, I kind of mentioned this in the Wolverine review.
Yeah.
James Mangold is probably the most diverse director ever because he's tackled pretty much every genre. We have the musical / biopic here. He did 3:10 to Yuma, which is a western. He did Identity, which is a horror movie. He did Copland, which is a crime movie. He did Girl Interrupted, which is a drama. He did The Wolverine, the most recent one, which is a superhero movie. He did a movie called, I think his first movie was something called Heavy. It had Liv Tyler in it. That was about like an overweight guy or something. I didn't see it. That's like the only movie because I haven't seen. He did a romantic comedy with Kate and Leopold. Just the guy, and I'm sure there's some I'm missing too. He did an action movie with Night and Day.
Yeah.
The only genre I think he hasn't done yet is sci-fi and war. I don't think he's done war yet. But yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what his next thing is. He wants to do another Wolverine movie with Hugh Jackman, but hopefully he kind of keeps going on this I've never repeated a genre yet thing. So, yeah. And well, of course, Ray is Taylor Hackford, who is he's Helen Mirren's husband. Mm-hmm. He did The Devil's Advocate, and he we talked about this with all the Butler news. Beloved, the Oprah movie that got the Shaft. He made that, and he did An Officer and a Gentleman. He's done a lot of movies, but those are the ones I remember. I don't know why I remember Beloved of all things. Before I said An Officer and a Gentleman.
Very strange.
The Devil's Advocate is usually what I think of when I think of Taylor Hackford. So,
yeah.
He did another movie recently that I think like sucked and like did not seem like him at all. But I can't remember what it was. We can look it up in a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh no, I definitely take Walk the Line. Not just over Ray, but probably over a lot of biopics. So.
Okay. Well, later today we're actually going to have another versus. We're going to have two in the same day so we can catch up, and it's going to be an interesting one. And based on the fact that this is officially, well, obviously unofficially, but as the video is coming out, this is the Golden Globes Day. This is a movie, one of these movies did pretty well at the Golden Globes, actually.
They both did.
I wasn't aware about the second one.
Joaquin took the Globe?
No, I'm talking about next week.
Oh, next week.
Not next week, but I mean the one we're doing next. That's also being filmed the same day.
I just stopped thinking what that was.
Yeah. All right, so we got one more for you today, actually, and then next week we're going to go back into two more for the rest of the month, and then in February we're going to go into Love Theme, so that'll be fun. So, AJ, any parting words for this versus?
That's it.